Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Today at the Crabby Coffee Shop, we break it down, build it up, and make it work. Let's send it. This is the portion of the show, Amy, where I give you grief and I say, "Hey, dummy, how you doing?" And then I give you the needle and all that, and we have fun, and it's all
it's hootenanny,
fun and games.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about you, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, why are you worried?
Just tell me you're okay.
I'm
fine. Here's
fine.
my fear that not only. Well, first of all, that you're going to quit the show because you have a real job and you're really, really, really busy. And now is probably the worst time in your life to drop everything and then go do a stupid podcast with me.
Actually, Kenny,
yeah.
This is a vacation from what I've been doing. I'm not even kidding. And look at you, look at your face, know who you are. That I'm calling you my beloved friend a vacation tells you what state my life is in.
That's why I'm worried about you. I'm worried that you're actually going to walk off the job, period, because you really don't need this.
No, I wouldn't leave this.
Okay.
This high-paying job I would keep.
We've got, by the way, Neal Justin, Star Tribune, is in the building, and we're going to talk about the coverage of the events over the weekend in the Twin Cities, because both of us are news nerds and we're breaking news nerds. And not only are we interested in the news itself, but we're interested in the way everybody presents it to us.
Yeah.
And we have been for a long time. So we're going to talk about that. But I've been collecting emails for about the last month and a half.
Are they nice?
Yes. All of them.
Because I can't take mean today.
Yeah, no, same here. They're all nice. And I want to start with our discussion about technology. Was that last week where we just bitched? All we did was complain?
I'm trying to remember a show where we didn't bitch. When would that have been?
Dean says, "Welcome to the world of technology Tourette's. I used to be afflicted with it more, but now I realize that technology will never improve until society decides to care about quality. It bothers me that I no longer get technology Tourette's and just gave up, and I just escaped. There's very little rhyme or reason for the failures nowadays. I hope this week is better." Thank you,
what?
Dean.
That reminded me what we were talking about. I believe it was last week, was how we react when our phones ding with texts or ring. And you're like, what? Why? Why are you calling me? What? That's what we were doing.
Yeah, and it either evolved or devolved from there because Bert writes, Bert, by the way, a frequent emailer, and I love the guy. This show starts out with two old farts kvetching about this and that. Then it comes around to note that all will be well and things aren't so bad after all. Anyway, it was very sweet and informative. I don't use the cloud either. Oh, yeah, that's right. I said I never use the cloud. And now I have further justification. I think that was after what I reported Bob, our IT guy, said, right?
Mm-hmm. He's anti-cloud.
Yeah. Also, I think I have a couple of old Walkman laying around somewhere. Maybe a little Mad Money I didn't know about. And
they're very valuable.
The missus will never know.
We'll keep your secret, Bert.
Here's something really interesting. It's about a few weeks before that, maybe a month ago, I was complaining about how hard it is to cancel DirecTV that's owned by AT&T. Well, I've since learned that AT&T sold off DirecTV. And my question is, why am I still getting a bill from AT&T? Anyway, this is from Paul, who evidently he's been a computer nerd for a long time. And he used to have something, an email account called UUCP in the 80s. Yeah, I don't remember that anyway. Anyway, I would get a bill from him every month. You paid per email sent. So he used to receive pages and pages, full 8.5 by 11 pages, not folded. He canceled the account, but he had a credit of $2 or $3 for 4 to 5 months. They continued to send him a bill with a credit on it.
Right.
They wouldn't close it. Finally, he had to call him, told him to stop sending the bill. The operator looked it up and said, we can't do that. And so he said, just keep the money.
I forfeit.
So they did. And that closed the account. So they got $3 out of them.
Yeah, we were talking about my mom had gotten a bill from some company that said that she owed them, like, I can't remember what the story was, $1 or something. So she just kept putting like a dime or a nickel or whatever on a piece of paper and mailing it to them every month.
My favorite is, I didn't get his name, but it's really good. It's about canceling DirecTV. I feel your pain. I went through the same process. Talked to my old man a few months later. He mentioned he canceled his as well. I asked him how long it took. He said, maybe 3 minutes. I just told the gal that I was headed to prison, and they canceled it right away. Might be worth a shot. So that was actually fun. We got a lot of reaction from actually those two shows. And let's just be honest, at least I am never confident when we don't have a guest.
I know you aren't.
Yeah, because I wouldn't tune in to listen to what I have to say about anything.
We direct you to the past 10 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, do you have anything else before we get to Neal?
No, I want to talk to Neal. Actually, I've never told him this because I've never seen Neal, but his column is one of the things in the paper that if I go to the paper, I look for, that is one of the things I look for first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's going to be interesting.
That kind of thing is always interesting to me. So we'll talk to Neal Justin right after this. We Are Nuts presents the Garage Logic podcast coming up this Friday at the 51st MSRA Back to the 50s weekend. It's right there at the fairground. The boys, we're all going to be there on Friday at noon, and it's going to be a fantastic fun time. We're talking over 10,000 pre-64 hot rods and customs, 200 vendors, both inside and out. There's a swap meet, a cruise and arts craft fair, ladies showcase, kids world. It's for the whole family. And yeah, GL is going to be there on Friday doing a podcast. We're going to start right around noon or so. We're at O'Gara's. They're on the corner of Dan Patch and Cosgrove. But you make sure if you're going to go this weekend, get there early on Saturday because there's a big flyover at 11 a.m. Also church on Sunday morning. And the big event that we're actually excited about at GL, the Great Race, kicks off from the fairgrounds on Saturday. It's a celebration of cylinders all summer long at GL. And we're really excited about the Great Race. This is a endurance style race that's going to kick off from the fairgrounds on Saturday, and eventually a week later will end up in South Carolina. It's for cars 74 and older, and there's checkpoints along the way. Really interesting, really fun, and we're really excited about it. Please join us at noon on Friday at O'Gara's, right there in the fairgrounds, for the 51st annual MSRA Back to the 50s weekend.
Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. Fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Lowe's, Levi's, and Nike pay Rakuten to send them shoppers. And Rakuten then passes on a part of that payment to its members as cash back. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It's a no-brainer. Membership is free and easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's Rakuten. Your cashback really adds up.
Neal Justin, welcome to the Crabby Coffee Shop.
Thanks for having me. And by the way, you have not been crabby at all so far. I'm a little, disappointed.
It's going to get bad.
All right, good. That's why I'm here.
But you and I are in a separate place, so Neal, we can huddle together.
Is that done on purpose?
Yeah, we'll huddle together and try and, just put up with the slings and arrows that he sends our way.
Here's the deal, and this is honest. When I lived in Minneapolis, and I did for about 1 million years, I was the angriest man in town. And now that I have moved up here, I've been gone since the summer after COVID or the winter after COVID. I don't remember. I've been the happiest man in the world.
Well, I have a theory that anybody with a big bushy white beard like you have cannot truly be crabby.
It's the Santa Claus effect?
That's part of it.
Okay.
I fit in nice.
I mean, look at what a nice guy David Letterman turned out to be once he grew that beard. Just a nice person in the world. That's right.
It's true.
Yeah. The weekend. Well, what a weekend indeed. I ended up over here in the studio from, I think, about 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., watching everything on 2 TV screens and then following everything I could on the internet. And it was just fascinating the way the different stations in town handled the breaking news.
Yeah, this was a perfect example of the media at its best and different media doing what it does best. This was a story that had a lot of questions, a lot of moving parts, and it required a lot of investigation and knocking on doors and working sources and following breadcrumbs. And that's what traditional print media does so well. The Minnesota Star Tribune, where I work, Washington Post, New York Times. That's really where they excel, and they certainly did this weekend and continue to do this week. On the other hand, TV media also is at its best on these kind of stories. This was a story where you were waiting with bated breath for the next detail.
Yeah.
And you want it as quickly as possible, and you want it told by people that you're familiar with, that can sort of hold your hand through it.
Yeah.
And, it's one thing when a reporter writes about something, but when you see an anchor that has guided you through good times and bad times on a daily basis that you feel like is your friend, when you see them taking you through it and you see their emotions, that's very, very powerful. And so both media was really, if you wanted to know this story, you really had to follow both types of media, and both did it, stepped up to the plate.
So we have been trying to get Amy Hockert on this show for, I think, since the inception. And it's always one thing or another, and we'll get her scheduled, and then her news director boss will find something better for her to do. And I'm not going to criticize this news director. I'm actually in awe of what Channel 9 did over the weekend. But now I want Amy on the program just to talk about the way she handled this news on Saturday and Sunday. She was at the desk on Saturday for Fox 9.
Yeah.
And what I like about breaking news is there's no teleprompter. And it really separates the pros from the amateurs. Yeah. And I learned that Hockert is really good under fire, as is Karen Scullin and a few other co-anchors. And that's across the board. Channel 11, we learned, what's the gal's name on Channel 11 that we know so well? Oh, Julie Nelson.
Julie Nelson.
Yeah, Julie. We learned during the riots that Julie is really, really good without a teleprompter. And I was just really impressed, I've got to say, with Fox 9 and the way they handled it all weekend long.
You bring up an interesting point, and it's a changing role of the TV anchor, especially in the local market. The TV anchor job, most days you're reading off a teleprompter. As you said, there's a little happy talk at the end of the show, but it's mostly reading off the teleprompter, which is a skill, but it's not an admirable. I mean, it's not one of the great journalism skills. What the local TV anchor's job is become more and more is being a public figure.
Yep.
Going out to public events, glad handing, emceeing, that kind of thing. And that's very important. But there does come moments, and this weekend was one of them, where you do have to work without a net. And you do have to know what's going on. And they may only happen 3 or 4 times a year, but when they do, you want somebody that's not Ron Burgundy or Ted Knight. You know,
Right.
want somebody who can do that. And they don't get to flex that muscle all that often. There used to be a time when TV anchors would do investigative reporting and work sources. That happens less and less. But there are those moments where you need that person to flex that muscle. And, you know, we're very lucky here in the Twin Cities. I think we take it for granted, the quality of our local media. I'll nitpick as well as I can be crabby about it, too.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is maybe Seattle is really the only market that has a strong local news team. Denver's is pretty good. But even if you go to New York or L.A. and you watch their local news, it pales in comparison to the quality. And the viewers deserve a lot of credit for that because they want teams that do investigative work. They want teams that do long feature stories. Yes, they want the weather and sports and all that stuff. But they also reward good quality journalism. And that's why all the 4 major and to a certain extent TPT are all very strong news departments.
So I also learned some things that I really, really hate, but I don't know.
Here's the crabby part.
Yeah, let's not get.
Here we go.
You know what? I want to keep giving props first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul Bloom. I know the name. I know the face.
Yeah.
He's a reporter. That's all I know. Paul Bloom got himself in position on Saturday, somewhere behind Mellisa Hortman's house, maybe 200 yards away. And with Zoom, you could see the back of the house and you could see the car that Bolter had used and left in the driveway. And it was a fascinating shot. And I think Fox 9 was the only one with that angle. And that, to me, that's resourcefulness. That's a reporter that still goes out there and grinds in the trenches and does whatever it takes to get the shot and the story. And I was really impressed with Bloom over the weekend.
Well, I'd give credit probably to the cameraman or camerawoman as well. And that's another important point. A lot of local TV markets, even the sides of Minneapolis, will have people come in and out all the time. And after their 3-year contract is up, they'll go to another market where they get more money or bigger audience. People tend to stay here. Paul's been here a long time.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of veteran camera people, too. Experience matters.
Yeah.
Experience matters. And again, it pays off. Where to go, how to navigate that city. We had a big advantage over, CNN and Fox and the national news that came in because we knew, where things are. And Paul probably knew, and his team, producers and so on, knew where to set up. So that certainly makes a difference. And again, I'm not, we've gotten into this habit of reporters have to be on the scene of where things happen. And so you get these live shots of folks at a shooting or a fire 5 hours after it happened. And, and he said, well, gee, they spent a lot of time going out there to set up, and who cares? In this case, though, I think it did make a difference.
It did make a difference, but you just highlighted something that drives me crazy. Since I do traffic for Amy in my talk, I'm up at the break of dawn, so I watch the morning news programs. I don't see the news at night. But they'll send a reporter over to the Capitol and then stand in front of the Capitol at 6 a.m.
Yeah,
that drives me crazy.
Nobody there.
No, it's a trend that started, 20, 30 years ago. And the problem is, it's nice to have a reporter there, but the time it takes to travel there and then set up, you think could be spent doing other things. But it seems to work, but it drives me crazy too.
Well, and we've talked about, Kenny, and I have talked about it became fashionable, like you said, Neal, 30 years ago, whenever it was, that if there's snow, that the reporter has to be standing in the snow. If there's water, they have to be up to their waist in the water. Yeah. And that bugs me. But in this particular case, and that's a really good point, in this particular case, knowing and seeing what was happening was really valuable.
Yeah, and being on the side of that horror, and things were developing as it went. So, it made sense in this case, and, I have nothing but good things. I will say the Fox 9 studio was, I don't know where they were shooting from that set, but it was sort of public access looking. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit, but I thought that the story was so important that didn't matter to me. One thing I loved about both, whoever Amy was co-anchoring with, they both have computers and then they both have phones. And when one was talking, the other one was not only checking her phone, but also on the computer. Right. And then what I also love, and a lot of people might not realize this, if you're an anchor and you're, blah, 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 there's somebody in your ear on the IFB whispering things to you. Okay, we're going to go to Paul Bloom. And so you have to keep talking and concentrate on what you're saying while there's a voice in your ear. And I don't know if people, that's not easy.
That's another
not
gift.
Easy.
Yeah, that's another gift. And, but, I do want to give props out to the print people. I can still call it print. People are looking digitally. Yeah. That really did a lot of that digging, while the TV people were taking us through it step by step. There were people behind the scenes, and I commend my colleagues at the Star Tribune, and there were people from other news outlets that did a great job, too.
You bringing up something that's really important to me, and I want to get to that, but we've got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So, have you met my friend Dennis Kirk? I bet you have. If you ride a motorcycle, snowmobile, four-wheeler, side-by-side, you've got a good friend in Dennis Kirk. Of course, I'm talking about DennisKirk.com, the best and easiest way to shop for motorcycles, snowmobiles, side-by-side, and wheeler parts, and, importantly, accessories. DennisKirk.com, they've been around since 1969. They have over 185,000 parts and accessories. That's not hyperbole. I've been to the warehouse. It's amazing. And all of these parts are in stock right now. You're not going to find a better selection of fitment parts. That means stuff made for your machines. I've ordered parts for 20-year-old machines and 2-year-old machines and been very satisfied. If the part exists, DennisKirk.com has it in stock. Plus, I know I keep preaching on this. Trust me, they have the world's best gas cans in stock. Look up VP gas cans on DennisKirk.com. Make sure you order the hose kit with it. You'll thank me later. Before you go anywhere else, check out Dennis Kirk. Oh, plus, I got to mention this. Same-day shipping if you get that order in before 6 p.m. And even better, if it's over $89, it ships for free. And if something doesn't fit, you can return it. No questions asked, free returns on helmets and apparel. Whatever you ride, make sure you check out DennisKirk.com.
So the Twin Cities Savers online summer auction is going on. Kenny, are you familiar?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, starts
No. It's happening now.
It's underway now. Oh my gosh. It's going on right now, and it runs through Thursday, and it's got all kinds of stuff. It looks like this is all Kenny stuff.
Yeah.
Zero-turn lawnmower.
That's me.
String trimmer.
I have 3 of them.
Leaf, of course you do. Leaf blower.
Yeah.
All from Tri-State Bobcat.
That's my client. I love those guys.
That's amazing. I know that's your client. You love them.
Yeah.
Electric bikes and a generator from EcoFun Motorsports. Do you know I've actually been to EcoFun Motorsports? I wanted a little, what do you call it? A little scooter.
Yeah.
And it's a little out of my price range, but whatever.
Oh, well, save up. Maybe
that's
someday.
Okay. I'm just a poor little, char girl. Airport hotel stays at the Intercontinental for your next getaway. Garage storage systems. That sounds great for you from Gator Magnetics. There's a lot of stuff going on, and all you have to do is visit garagelogic.com, enter keyword auction, Kenny. Of course, you can't do that, so I'm actually going to take all that back. This is for Garage Logic people. Garagelogic.com, enter keyword auction to view, bid, and win.
Okay, Neal, here's what really makes me angry, and I'm of the age. You look at me and you look at me and go, I bet that guy's on Twitter. And you're right, I am. But I hate Twitter. Yeah. Seriously. It has devolved into such a cesspool, and what Twitter and social media did with this case over the weekend is absolutely despicable. But here's how I use Twitter over the weekend, and you mentioned this before the break. I go to all the legitimate reporters and news sources on the newspapers, and because you can trust their information, and they're not going to throw in something personal, especially when it's breaking news like this. You're not going to get opinion from them. You're just going to get news. And I know there's people listening right now that are disputing that, but it's the truth.
Yeah, when I talk to students or readers and I ask them where they get their news from, the answer a lot of times is Twitter. And I always say, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, Twitter's...
Who is that, right?
Yeah, who is that? Saying I get my news from television. Okay, tell me exactly who you're following and where it's leading you. And I think Twitter can be a useful guide if it's linking you to an original source. When somebody tweets something and it's not linked to anything, unless they're in a position where they know, I take it with not just a grain of salt, but a bowl full of salt. And it's dangerous. And, because I think people are looking for shortcuts, and they'll scroll for 5 hours on TikTok, but they won't dive deep into legitimate sources. And we're at a period right now where I think people are starting to realize the danger of that. And look, I'm biased. I work for a traditional media company where we have, on a story like this, I'm sure before we printed anything, 6 or 7 people looked at it beforehand.
Yeah. Right.
That's a little trickier when you have all these moving parts and things are moving so quickly, but that's what we're geared up to do. Yeah. You can't just take a rumor and throw it out there on the page.
And there was a lot of that.
And there was a lot of that. And, there's the trick, the challenge is that we're all competitors. And you want to be up first, and you want to get it right. But sometimes you forget that second part. And the Star Tribune is very good about we'd rather be right than first. Mm-hmm. But, that pressure is there, and we've gotten into trouble, let's be honest, in our haste to get things up quickly and haven't crossed all those T's. Again, our record's pretty good, but we're not perfect. And there is this pressure, and it's increasingly so, and we have to be careful about it.
With breaking news items at the other show I work on, Garage Logic, our motto is give it 48 hours, and we break that rule all the time. And about half the time it comes back to bite us, and we have to go on the next day and apologize and back up and say, okay, here's what really happened. So you're absolutely right about that. And one of these things on Twitter, people are they think that people that sit in their house or their office and listen to scanners and then tweet what they hear, they consider that news. Yeah. And the people that do that think that they're better than the news. And I listen to the scanner every morning, the State Patrol and MnDOT's first unit. Those are the guys, the highway helpers, right? And the story often changes between the first scanner report and the last one an hour later. It changes minute by minute. And these people that have these accounts, they just throw it out there like it's fact and it's confirmed and this really happened. And they don't get second sources. They don't confirm this with anybody else. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, and look, legitimate news organizations have made that same mistake too. I think people need to take a hard look at where their information's coming from, and we gravitate. You guys know this in talk radio more than anybody else, that people gravitate to what they want to hear, and they will cling to that, and they will find a source that agrees. If you don't want to believe this suspect in this crime, came from a certain political leaning, then you will find a source that says the political leaning you want him to come to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to believe the moon's made out of cheese, you can find a source somewhere that will back you up, and you can say, look it up, do your research. Well, that's kind of a silly argument, because if you do your research, you can find anything to back up anything. So,
well, and I think, Neal, that's where the Star Tribune, for me, and I think for a lot of Minnesotans, becomes very important this weekend for sure. When I wasn't either watching it on TV, I watched all of the different channels at different times, or listening to something. The Star Tribune was my go-to, because we're always in a position, all of us, like we're drinking from a fire hose, right?
Yeah.
But it really is a choose your adventure.
Yeah,
that's right.
I was talking to somebody this weekend, and I'm going to leave all names out of it for obvious reasons, but there was early indications on this story because of the pieces of paper sitting on the front seat of the car that said no kings.
Right.
And of course, there were no kings rallies going on around the country that were, assumed to be, and probably rightfully so, by and large attended by people who were Democrats or on the left, right? Because they were anti-president, anti this administration. But there was a lot of sort of information, depending on the points you just made, Neal, of depending on what you looked at, that was either being portrayed as a false flag or legitimate evidence in their minds, whoever it was that was talking about it, legitimate evidence that this was somebody conducting a false flag operation and trying to blame it on the other side. And it really, again, there was a friend of mine who was talking to someone else who got a long, 3-minute long diatribe about how this shooter was a particular political persuasion. Right. And as it turns out at the end of the story, what we know is fact, if that matters to anyone anymore, is that that wasn't the case.
Amy, they're still debating that on social now, 3 days later.
I think that's why it's important to find a source in your life that is going to do that work for you. And whether it's the Wall Street Journal or the Star Tribune or the New York Times, find that, invest in it, pay for it, and trust it. Look, they're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but they're going to get it 99.5% of the time. You have to be careful. Look, these pundits that come on, whether it's Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson or whoever you listen to, they're not journalists.
No.
They are smart people, and they sometimes write and broadcast brilliantly, but they have an agenda.
Yeah. Their opinion, they literally, their title is they are like what you would have called a columnist in the newspaper, and still do when papers have them. But even more so, I mean, it is not from a journalistic point of view. It's from an opinion point of view.
Well, it's from an advocacy point of view.
Right.
I mean, I think they were even different than opinion columnists and papers. But I will say, in the end, it's really up to the public to make the decision.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that Sean Hannity and Rachel Maddow and some of these folks have the power they do, because people go and listen to them. I'm going to see Theo Von this Friday. I'm fascinated by him.
I thought he was in town 3 weeks ago.
He's in town this Friday. I don't know if he was here, but he's touring a lot as well. And he's playing Xcel Energy Center, which is a big room. Yeah. And he's I just watched one of his specials, and he's a good comic. And he really represents a part of America that I think people that live in a bubble, big city bubble, don't think about enough, and understand why people voted for Donald Trump and people like that. He brings those people to life very well and represents them very well. Yeah. But he's got a lot of news power right now. It's people like Joe Rogan, and they don't have any sort of experience or. And I'm not saying it's bad, the conversations he has and that he's a bad person, but he's not a journalist. And if that's where you're getting your news from Joe Rogan and the Theo Von Show, and you're not coupling that with Wall Street Journal or Star Tribune, you're going to be led down the rabbit hole.
I keep telling my friends and my family that my family are on both sides of the political aisle.
Yeah, mine too.
Whether it's The View or it's somebody on Fox, I keep telling them over and over, they're doing show business.
Right.
Please understand the people that you're allowing to shape your lives and your opinion are doing show business. The number one thing they care about is the number of people watching and
That's
the
right.
ad revenue. That's all they care about.
And
the
go
people
ahead
that
and-
hire and the people that hire them, that's what they care about. The reason they're in that seat is because they bring the numbers and they sell the soap.
I think it's interesting to note that when television started for the first 20, 30 years, networks knew it was a money loser, and they did it out of public service. And they didn't even think about making money off of it until a show came along called 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
And to the shock of everyone, 60 Minutes started making money. And it really changed the game. It really made network news, the executives say, hold on here. Maybe we can be a public service and a moneymaker. And I think for the most part, networks news did that. But somewhere along the line, other competitors came in and said, well, let's put the emphasis on the money making.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting that 60 Minutes, I think, really changed in a lot of ways for the good, but maybe in some ways not so good.
There's so many things that you're saying that you're going to see me. You've probably noticed me laughing because you're triggering thoughts in my mind. And with Theo Vaughn, it's with. Sometimes sometimes the stories that Theo tells about his childhood, I'm thinking, oh my God, you're making that up. There's no way, because some of it is so ridiculous. And then when you just brought up 60 Minutes, I started thinking about Super 70 Sports and how he said just recently how 60 Minutes always kills all the good vibes that he had built up all weekend watching games and having fun. And then 60 Minutes comes on and dumps water all over
Something real serious, right?
Yeah. Okay, I have made up a scenario in my head about something that happened over the weekend that's been driving me crazy. And the more I think about it, the more angry I get. And I'm going to need you to tell me, yeah, that's a possibility, or no, you're an idiot. And we'll get to that right after this. Over 10,000 pre-64 hot rods and customs all in one place. We're talking the MSRA Back to the 50s weekend coming up this weekend at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. And We Are Nuts presents the Garage Logic podcast appearing there on Friday. Along with us, we'll get to us in a second. First, a swap meet. Over 200 vendors, both indoors and outdoors, a cruise, an arts craft fair, a ladies showcase Saturday morning, 11 a.m. There's a flyover. You want to go to church on Sunday? No problem. They have a church there too. This is a big, big event. And what we're excited about at Garage Logic, and the reason we're going, is we celebrate cylinders. We love cars. We love hot rods, old ones, new ones. It doesn't matter. The Great Race kicks off from the fairgrounds on Saturday. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Great Race, but it's the same thing. It's all sorts of crazy vehicles, 74 and older, all the way back to the oldest one this year is a 1918 American LaFrance open cockpit is going to be competing in this. It kicks off at the fairgrounds, runs for over a week, ends in North Carolina, and it's an endurance type thing. They have to go through checkpoints and the whole deal. We're fascinated by that, so we're going to be there. We're going to be at O'Gara's. They're at Dan Patch and Cosgrove. Podcast, right around noon or so. And I don't know how long we're going to talk, 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever. But if you can, show up and be there. What is this? The 51st annual MSRA Back to the 50s weekend with Garage Logic appearing thanks to We Are Nuts. On Saturday morning, I became convinced that news anchors and reporters were sitting on information and weren't delivering it to us because they started referring to Mellisa in the past tense without saying that she and her husband's name is Mark, I believe, right? That they were deceased. Okay, so I'm at this point, I'm reading a lot into it. And then the governor comes on with his press conference, and then he made it public. Due to my political leanings and my rage against him, and it's no secret, I'm not happy with him. I have convinced myself that his team wouldn't let the news organizations report that news and that he wanted to report it. Now, I realize that I'm psychotic, okay? I understand that about me. That's the only thing I've learned in my 60 years is that I'm actually crazy. Is that crazy, or do you think that happens?
I think that's probably crazy. Now, I wasn't up as early as you were, so I can't speak to that specific example. But I will tell you, a lot of times as a reporter, you are 90% sure of something. Maybe you have a single source. Maybe you have people saying, we think, and you're 90% sure of something. This is a difference, what we talked about before, between professional journalism and people just going on Twitter. 90% is not good enough.
No.
And so the anchors may have had people telling them on background, we think that these people have passed away. They may have had a lot of insight based on, who showed up at the scene, all kinds of things. But you're waiting for official word. And that's when people get frustrated with the media. Well, why didn't you report this? Why didn't you report, for example, Hunter Biden, for example? That was, a lot of people complained about the media. Yeah. Well, I think, or why didn't you complain Joe Biden's mental health? A lot of times you're 90% sure. But until you're 100% sure, or you have the sources, the 2 or 3 sources, as a mainstream media source, you cannot go with those stories. And that frustrates people. You look at an outlet like National Enquirer, which we're all old enough to remember. Maybe Kyle isn't, but the rest of us remember National Enquirer. They were right about 90% of the time, maybe even higher. Yeah. But they weren't always right, and they didn't care about being always right. No. They were happy to bat 95% of the time. You can't do that if you're a major TV station or a newspaper. So you may be right. The anchors may have had a pretty strong inkling that she'd passed, but unless you have an official source like the governor saying it, you can't go with it. I doubt they made a deal with the governor.
Right. And Kenny, I would say, too, what I thought about it was the whole weekend, even when it comes to the Hoffmans. What I thought was when you are talking about death and or severe wounds or anything else, especially death, you want to be sure. There are literally, in their case, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people affected by that news. And nobody wants to go on air, to your point, Neal, and say something when you're 90% sure and the 10% bears itself out, right? You've just alarmed thousands and thousands of people needlessly. A. B, I actually, my one of very small little nitpicks were, and I listened and watched, as I mentioned, a lot of things. As concerns the Hoffmans, there was a couple of outlets, one in particular, that kept saying that they had been shot multiple times each, and that they were, and I'm quoting, going to be okay. And I kept thinking, you don't know that.
Yeah.
You don't know that. We don't know that. Yeah. What I would have preferred them to say, and they said it multiple times throughout the afternoon. I cut people slack for once. Yeah. But to say they're going to be okay, first of all, I think all of us can intuit that after you've been shot 7 or 8 times in the horrific way they were, okay is a very relative term.
Yeah.
What I would rather have heard is they've been hospitalized. And we will update you.
Are you talking about the other couple?
Yeah, the Hoffmans.
Yeah.
They're hospitalized and we will update you on their condition. But I'm not sure that continuing to say they're going to be okay just seemed like a departure from journalism.
I think you're right.
For me, and
again,
I know that's a nitpick.
We don't know. I mean, they may have had inside information at the hospital that said they're in stable condition.
We knew. I mean, I'll just say to Kenny's
point.
But
yeah, to say absolutely they're going to be okay is extreme.
We knew the senator was dead because politicians had told reporters before the press conference. They had sources they had contacted, and so we knew it. I told Joe at 9 that morning, but it was just one of those things. If you can't get a senator to say, "I will say this
on the record,"
the Star Tribune or a credible news place will not allow you to report that, and they had all agreed that the governor was going to announce it at 9:30. You knew, if you can read news, you knew it because they were reporting she was alive.
Right.
When they reported she was shot, if she was alive, they would have reported she was stable or in some kind of condition. Also was a sign.
Kyle, I'm glad you brought up senators because this is something that drives me crazy, and I'm going to run this by Neal and Amy. And I think, again, this is an issue where it only affects me when there's breaking news like there was, especially Saturday morning, when they go to a politician for their comments and their reactions. I get violently PO'd because I don't want to hear that. I want to hear news. Now, before you go and tell me I'm wrong, the one place where I was wrong was Amy Klobuchar actually brought some breaking news to the table. So that in that case, it proved me wrong. But how do you feel about reactionary stuff?
Well, I think in the case of a lot of these cases, let's say it's a massive shooting or something, great fire or great tragedy. Yeah, sometimes hearing from the politicians is just filling airtime, and they somehow twist it around to their agenda. This was a little bit different because politicians had been killed or wounded. So, yeah. and a lot of the people that were on the air, including Senator Klobuchar and Governor Walz, worked with those folks and knew those folks. And this was a threat to politicians. So in this case, I thought it was important to hear from politicians. But in general, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well,
Amy?
I think in this particular case, what we were all, at least I found myself, we were all thirsty for facts. We were thirsty for details. We were thirsty for some sense of what's the latest going on, and for a long time, Saturday and Sunday, of course, into Monday, we were thirsty for where is this guy?
Yeah.
You know, is he still in that 3-mile radius, which I think by the time several hours had gone by, we all assumed he wasn't anymore, but didn't know for sure. And that's when I found myself going to the Star Tribune, you know, because I knew one thing I know with the Star Tribune, and I'm not saying this because you're here, Neal, is that at least I knew, as you just described, different than something on Twitter or social media, just randomly Googling something, I knew it would be vetted. I knew that what I was going to get was going to be vetted.
Yeah, and something to think about before we go in terms of our thirst. You know, we used to, on a daily basis, you got your news at a couple of times. You got it in the morning when the paper hit your stoop, or you got it at 5:30 when Walter Cronkite or David Brinkley came on. And we learned to just wait.
Yeah.
Those days are gone.
Right.
And in some ways, it's fantastic that we can get news whenever we want to and be updated. But in other ways, it feeds that thirst. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more.
Yeah.
You're not quite sure? Tell me anyways.
That's so true.
And that's when we start to get into trouble.
And by the way, I think we're obviously all of us to some degree or another are guilty of that. One of the things I noticed that day, other than the outstanding job that our local TV and of course, local media did, but there was still, I remember early on in the day, Saturday, because I came here to switch my talk over to the Channel 5 coverage. It just seemed kind of incongruous to be in, you know, weekly dish shows. Exactly.
Good choice.
Yeah, so we switched over. But as I was listening to and watching the coverage, many believed at first when they saw that it was that security company that he and his wife he and his wife had founded, that initially what I heard a lot for a couple of hours until we sort of learned more, and that sort of goes to what you're saying. We had such a thirst to know, who is this guy? What's his background? Right. That I was hearing a lot of sources saying, oh, he's highly trained in military and security tactics. Right. Yeah. He's a food service worker.
Yeah.
Who happens to own a security company.
That website had me so duped that I was convinced that this guy had spycraft, that everything he was doing was so he wouldn't be caught 5 steps down the road.
Right.
And as the weekend went on, I realized,
hold it.
No, dumb. And I was relieved, glad I'm not on the air. Because
they filed,
they
filed escort papers with the state of Minnesota, and there were 2 people in their company, the wife and the husband.
Yeah.
But to your point, and again, I'm trying not to nitpick. It wouldn't have taken a lot for legit journalistic sources to look behind the scenes of the state of Minnesota and how that company is registered and who owns it, to know that it wasn't a 1,000 person security firm that he had worked for decades.
Yeah, but it takes time.
It takes time.
Yeah.
Speaking of sources, I thought it was really interesting who broke the news on Sunday evening that he had been caught. And what I determined, and in this case, I'm not going to drop names. In this case, it was the reporters who have the most sources inside of law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And they got this. Sometimes, in fact, Tom Hauser is somebody I trust implicitly, but he was about 8 to 10 minutes late reporting this. And I'm assuming it's because they had to go through the process and vet this with more than just one source.
And
but
think about what you just said. 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we consider that late to the story now.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
What did you think about on Sunday afternoon and evening, the people that broke into regular programming and the people that didn't? That really got my dander up, too.
I really didn't pay that much attention to who did and who didn't. That's always a tricky thing. But I'm surprised that once they arrested the guy, are you saying that some people didn't break in when they arrested the guy?
Until he was arrested, then they broke in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're talking.
That's okay with you,
right?
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I thought it was really interesting and worth a mention because I'm such a Julie Nelson fan that they had to break into golf. And when you're doing TV on Sunday, that's a dangerous prospect. Right. But they got lucky because the golf was being rain delayed.
Yeah.
So Julie's on the air, and every 3-4 minutes she says, by the way, they're still in a rain delay. As soon as the rain delay is over, it will go back.
It's okay, golfers. Everybody's okay.
And again, we're in a day and age where people can get their news from other sources. So if KARE 11's not showing it, they can switch to CNN or one of the other things. In the old days, that was much harder to do.
Are you willing to declare a winner, a TV station, or
no? Not on something like this. I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. But I will say, I watched a lot of Tom because Tom knew those people, and I thought he did a great job. But a lot of people did.
Tom Hauser.
What's so funny about Hauser is the left thinks he's a right-wing puppet, and the conservatives
the right thinks he's a left-wing
puppet.
I get that all the time, too. Yeah. So that means you're doing your job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and my buddy, I'm buddies with Kathy Werzer. She gets the same thing.
Yeah.
And that just means, Kathy, you're doing a bang-up job. I am not afraid to declare a winner because I have zero credibility. And this should be taken with a grain of salt. But obviously, I think that Fox 9 News and especially Hockert and Scully and everybody else that shared the desk with her, to me, they were the clear winners. And I hats off to this news director. I don't know if it's a weekend person or the person that works during the week. And by the way, would you hurry up and release her? Because we want to talk to her, and I'm really getting mad at you. But, ma'am or sir, you did a great job. I thought they did a wonderful job.
Is she under detention? What do you mean release her?
Kyle,
to
explain
get on the
it.
show, right?
Explain it, Kyle. Can you explain it to us?
The news director?
Is she?
No, Amy appearing here.
It's just
Amy Hockert, gotcha.
Yeah, the news director just didn't sign off. Said wait until everything's over.
You will. I will say I've dealt with Fox for a long time. A lot of those decisions are not based on the news director here or on Amy. That comes from New York. All their appearances have to be cleared from New York, and that can take some time. Believe me, as somebody who's covered local media, I've had to go through New York when it comes to dealing with Fox.
Why is that?
Because
explain that to me.
It's a corporate. It's a corporate decision. They want everything to.
Kenny's worked for a family business too long. He doesn't understand stockholders.
The local Fox station is owned by Fox corporate, and so they want everything cleared through them. And Fox is more protective than other entities.
For instance, KARE 11's not owned by NBC, owned or operated by NBC.
But they have to go through Tegna.
Right.
But Fox is a little different. And that's why it's a lot, for me as a reporter, it's easier to deal with KSTP because the decisions can be made right in this room.
Right.
Rob can decide And anchors and reporters can kind of decide on their own whether they want to talk to me or not. That's not true at the other stations.
I have to admit, Kyle's right. If somebody asked me on their show, I would answer immediately. Either, I like you, or no.
Yeah,
there's no chance
I don't
in hell.
have to clear anything. But everybody on Fox, including the news director, can't comment until, on the record, can't comment until they call New York. And that can take time.
Sure.
Anything else, Amy? I'm sure in the next 3 hours I'll remember all sorts of questions that I wish I would have asked. Do you have anything else?
Well, I mean, we're talking about the coverage, but I think at the end of the day, we all have thought about what I thought about this weekend, and I assume most of us have. I mean, I grew up in this town. I grew up in the state. I was away for a couple of years, but I've been here most of my life. And I just... the last, 6 years since what happened with George Floyd, and from that point forward, it just feels like our, I'm not saying it was ever true, but our image of ourselves in this state and our image of ourselves in the Twin Cities has suffered some blows.
That's right.
Yeah, definitely.
And this contributed to yet another horrific thing that if you'd have told me when I was 15 or 25 that this would happen in Minnesota after I've bragged everywhere else I've lived for a couple of years, what a wonderful place this was. And I'm not saying it's not a wonderful place. I'm saying reality has come to visit us here. And whether that was ever reality or if it was always a fantasy and we're just living through, a different iteration of it, I don't know. But it was yet another chink in the armor. And it's rough.
Well, thank goodness we have a strong media to cover it all.
In keeping with the name of the program, Crabby, there's just something I have to get off my chest and it's the worst thing about the weekend, and we've been talking about it throughout the show, and I just want to make it clear. Social media, you people on social media, with breaking news, social is good when you, like we said, when you follow good reporters and anchors, people who have rock solid sources. However, there's too many people right now on social that call themselves journalists that are just stupid, loudmouth hacks that spew garbage and false narratives, and all you want is clicks and followers. You people are destroying this country. You all have an agenda, and it's stupid, and you're wrecking this country with your nonsense.
There's the Crabby
There
part
is a Crabby we like.
Oh, I feel so much better
feels
now.
Good.
Amy, Neal, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody for listening.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks.